Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for the return of the Football Alphabet series. I haven't posted an episode in this series for a while, but I'm bringing it back now, and we're picking up where we left off, which is the best clubs whose names begin with J. If you are new to the channel and don't understand what the Football Alphabet series is all about, the premise is pretty simple and self-explanatory. I take a look at the best teams and players whose names and surnames respectively begin with a particular letter of the alphabet. And if you want to check out any of the other episodes I've done in this series thus far, there is a playlist link containing all of them in the description down below. And if you're new around here, of course, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. But without any further ado, here is my Hall of Fame of the best clubs whose names begin with the letter J. Number 1. Juventus. There is a severe dearth of well-known teams whose names start with a J. In fact, only one league team in the entirety of the British Isles has a J in its name at all. But there is one exception to that quirk, and that team is, of course, Juventus. The Italian behemoths were founded in 1897 when a group of football-mad students, of whom the eldest was aged just 17, met on a bench in the city centre of Turin and decided to establish a football club there and then, which would later go on to be called Juventus, the Latin word for youth. They competed in the first ever Italian League Championship in 1900 and won it for the first time in their history in 1905, but the following year, a rift within the club led to their president Alfred Dick leaving and setting up his own team by the name of Torino, who are of course Juventus' local rivals. They recovered from this rift pretty slowly, but after they were purchased by the Fiat Company in 1923, who maintain a significant say in Juventus to this day, their fortunes really started to turn. They won 5 Serie A titles in a row between 1931 and 1935 and supplied 9 of Italy's 1934 World Cup winning squad, including Luis Monti and Raimundo Orsi, with the latter of whom scoring the equaliser in the final against Czechoslovakia. Their dominance has continued ever since then, as they have won 36 Serie A titles in their history, nearly double the tally of second place Inter Milan, and they won an Italian record 9 titles in a row between 2012 and 2020, including going unbeaten in 2011-12, although they did draw 15 games that season, and becoming the first Italian side in the history of the league to amass 100 points in a single league campaign in 2013-14. Throughout their history, they have been subject to multiple allegations of corruption, bribery of referees, and then subsequent favouritism towards them by the authorities. A prime example of this came on the final day of the 1981-82 Serie A campaign, when they needed to better title rivals Fiorentina's result in order to win the league that year. Fiorentina were controversially denied a very clear goal for an alleged push on the goalkeeper in their 0-0 draw against Cagliari, while Juventus were awarded a dubious penalty, from which they scored, to help them win their game against Catanzaro, who had a penalty appeal of their own turned down and overhauled La Viola right at the end. Fiorentina midfielder Giancarlo Antonioni claimed, "They have stolen the title." The old lady have been subject to many other match-fixing allegations, but the most notorious scandal that they have been involved in, certainly to modern-day viewers, came with the Calciopoli scandal in 2006, where Juventus was found to have influenced the authorities to pick certain referees for their games who would more frequently side in their favour. When the story came to light, they were stripped of their 2005 and 2006 Serie A crowns and originally relegated to Serie C with a 30 points deduction for the following campaign, although this was reduced to a relegation to Serie B and a 9-point deficit on appeal, which made the 2006-07 campaign the only one in Juve's history in which they haven't competed in Serie A. In addition to their 36 official league crowns, they have picked up 14 Coppas Italia, 3 UEFA Cups, 1 European Cup Winners' Cup, and a Serie B title in 2007. Perhaps surprisingly given their domestic dominance, they've only won 2 European Cups or Champions Leagues in their entire history, with their first in 1985 being marred by the Hazel disaster that resulted in 39 Juventus fans losing their lives. They finished as runners-up in Europe's Premier Cup competition a further 7 times, most recently in 2017 when they were humbled 4-1 by Cristiano Ronaldo-inspired Real Madrid in Cardiff, but as of the time of this recording, they are one of 3 teams to have still not abandoned the prospect of the European Super League, alongside Barcelona and Real Madrid, so their future in the European game is, well, anyone's guess really. Number 2. Juventud. As much as I don't want to unnecessarily throw shade on the teams who feature in this video, there is a noticeable step down in class from our first to our second inclusions in this video, as we go from Juventus of Italy to Juventud of Brazil. Formed in 1913 by a group of 35 individuals, they refused admission to the Porto Alegrense FA in 1915, owing to not being formally structured at that point. But 5 years later, they accepted the invitation to the Rio Grandense FA, now known as the Gaucho FA, competing in their first regional league competition in 1925. However, they happen to compete in the same regional league as Brazilian giants Internacional and Grêmio, who have won all but 16 of the 101 regional Gaucho leagues thus far, so Juventude's success in 1998, unsurprisingly, remains the only one in their history, and last season they were knocked out in the semi-finals by Internacional. In the early 1970s, Juventud were hit hard by the financial crisis that was engulfing Brazil at the time, and in order to preserve their very existence, they had to merge with rivals Flamengo, a move which was met with a fierce backlash from supporters. The merger ultimately didn't work, and by 1973, they were back to being an independent club once more, although they had stayed alive and were rewarded with promotion to the Brazilian Serie A for the first time in their history for the 1977 campaign. To date, they've spent 17 seasons in Brazil's top flight, with their highest ever league positions being 2 7th place finishes in 2002 and 2004. Their greatest achievement came in 1999, when, despite competing in Serie B at the time, they won the Copa do Brasil by beating Botafogo 2-1 on aggregate in the final, earning the right to compete in the Copa Libertadores in 2000, although they were knocked out in the group stages in a group containing Palmeiras, El Nacional of Ecuador, and Bolivian outfit The Strongest, whom Juventud finished above. Players such as former Schalke, Monaco and Wolfsburg defender Naldo, current Chelsea centre-back Thiago Silva, AC Milan and Roma legend Cafu, current Nice captain Danch and former Spurs flop turned Barcelona superstar Paulinho have all turned out for Juventud at some point. Number 3. Jubilee Iwata. Moving over to Asia for our next entrance, we find ourselves in Japan with a club whose first name means joy in Spanish and Portuguese, with the name being given to symbolise their aims of bringing joy and inspiration to their fans. Or so it says on their website at the very least. They were created in 1970 as the football team for the Yamaha Motor Company, although it would take until 1982 for them to reach the top flight of Japanese football for the first time, albeit they coupled that success with an Emperor's Cup victory that very year. In 1988, they finished as champions of the Japan Soccer League, but when the league was professionalised in 1992 and rebranded as the J-League, the club decided not to take part of it and forcibly relegated themselves. They returned in 1994 and brought Brazilian World Cup winning captain Dunga to the club in 1995, who inspired one of the most successful and dominant periods in the history of Japanese football. Between 1997 and 2003, Iwata won 3 J-League titles and finished as runners-up on 3 more occasions, as well as lifting a J-League Cup in 1998 and the Asian Champions League, then known as the Asian Club Championship, in 1999, setting a plethora of domestic records, including most goals scored and fewest goals conceded in a league season during that time. After 2003 though, the club fell on hard times and they were relegated to the J-League 2 in 2013, suffering another relegation from the top flight in 2019. Although last season they did win the J-League 2 to earn themselves promotion back to the big time, and they sit in 7th place after 4 games in the current J-League season. Dunga is undoubtedly the most high-profile player to have ever played for the club, but they supplied 6 players for Japan's various World Cup squads between 1998 and 2014, including Masashi Nakayama, who scored Japan's only goal in their 2-1 defeat against Jamaica at the 1998 finals in France. Number 4. Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Staying in Asia for now, we hop over to Japan's 2002 World Cup co-host South Korea to profile the most successful team in the history of their country's football, namely Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Their foundation is quite confusing, as their predecessors, Wansan Puma, were set up in 1993 but immediately fell into bankruptcy before Bobe Limited, an alcohol manufacturer, bought the club and changed the name to Jeonbuk Buffalo. They competed in the inaugural K-League season in 1994, but yet again fell into financial insolvency, and in an attempt to not let the reputation of Korean football fall into disrepute, especially since the country hadn't yet won its bid to host the 2002 World Cup, Hyundai Motors purchased the rights to the club and named them Jeonbuk Dinos, although the K-League officially recognises them and Buffalo as 2 separate clubs. Over the course of their first 15 years of existence, they mostly languished in mid-table and never once mounted a significant title challenge, although they did win 3 Korean Cups in that time, namely in 2000, 2003 and 2005. The latter triumph earned them their second AFC Champions League qualification for the 2006 campaign, and they went on to win the whole competition that very year, beating Al Kanama of Syria in the final. That would prove to be a turning point in the club's history, and ever since 2009, they haven't so much as finished outside of the top 3 in the K-League even once. 9 league titles have followed in that time, including an unbroken streak of 5 in a row from 2017 until the present day, and their second AFC Champions League crown came in 2016, following a 3-2 aggregate win over Al Ain. However, they haven't started off the current season in title-winning form, I think it's fair to say, with just 1 win from their first 5 games, leaving them second from bottom in the league, and they will probably have a mountain to climb if they are to extend their run of consecutive league titles to 6. Number 5. Jorge Wilstermann. Bolivian football has a rather strange propensity of brilliant team names, ranging from the strongest and always ready to blooming and Aurora, but one Bolivian club may well hold the distinction of being one of the few football clubs to be wholly named after someone who has no connection to the club whatsoever, namely Jorge Wilstermann. The club was founded in 1949 when a group of employees at Lloyd Aero Boliviano wanted to make a football club for the company, and it was originally named San Jose de la Banda, although it was changed later on to honour Jorge Wilstermann, Bolivia's first ever commercial pilot who died in a plane accident in 1936, some 13 years before the team bearing his name was set up. They dominated their first season in the second tier of Bolivian football to such an extent that they applied for a place in the top flight and were granted it, and their first national title would arrive in 1957, which they backed up with 2 more titles in the following 2 campaigns to make it a hat-trick. They would end up winning 7 league titles during the amateur era of Bolivian football, and when the country turned fully professional in 1980, Wilstermann stepped up to the plate emphatically as they won the first 2 league championships of the professional era in 1980 and 1981. It would take until the 21st century for them to win another league crown, but they have picked up 6 more since then, although they currently find themselves in 5th place and outside of the qualification places for the knockout rounds of the 2022 Apertura, albeit only 5 games have been played so far. They've competed in the Copa Libertadores on 15 occasions, but they've never won it, with their best run in the competition coming in 1981, when they reached the semi-finals but came last in their semi-final group, picking up just 1 point from their 4 matches against Flamengo of Brazil and Deportivo Cali of Colombia. And that just about wraps up today's video, looking at 5 of the best teams whose names begin with J. If you enjoyed this video, as I said at the start, please don't forget, like it, subscribe to the channel, and also ring the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload a video straight away. And if you want to check out any of the other Football Alphabet episodes, there will be a playlist link in the description down below, and the players episode for the best players whose surnames begin with the letter J will follow in due course. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.